for Courtney, isn't it?
Yes, and I think I need to point out at this point that people who are sexual predators, and particularly pedophiles, have some major problems with the way in which they reason. And one of the ways they reason is that children want sexual interaction, and so as an adult they engage it. Now, children do want sexual interaction, and the reason why they do is because they've already injured through their society-based injuries and parental-based injuries. As an adult, it is a requirement of adult to exercise more responsibility and not further harm the child in that particular sexual injury. And I see a lot of people who, and particularly historically, back in our first century life, it was a common thing for a man to sleep with a lot of his daughters, for example. And these particular injuries are huge injuries in the in this case that I'm using, the men who are pedophiles. Of course, there are women who are also pedophiles, and the same applies to them. My feeling is that we need to make sure that we understand that yes, children do have sexually confusing emotions, but those sexually confusing emotions are primarily the result of the injuries coming from their parents and society and religion and politics and all other forms of society.
The barrage that
entered them from the time of conception to, usually before they're 3 or 4 years of age. And as a result of that, any child who's 3 or 4 years of age projecting sexually is actually demonstrating that there is a damage from their family-based environment or their environment that they've grown up in already that's occurred, that's severe enough for them to understand how to use sexual emotion as a way of manipulating circumstances and events.
Yeah, and there's those very sad statistics about children who are sexually abused, physically sexually abused in their childhood, that very often it happens then more than once in their childhood, and then they go on to be raped as adults or adolescents.
Most spirits who are involved in this process with people on earth, and most pedophiles, are very sensitive to the fact that somebody has already been sexually harmed and therefore opened it to their harm.
Yes, they're opened up already. They've been given a very injured understanding of sexuality that will mean they're more receptive than, say, another child or another adolescent.
And also less willing to be open and truthful about it.
Yeah, more shamed.
And the higher the likelihood of the shame, the higher the likelihood is that the family, if they were ever told of the event, would be angry with the child rather than the perpetrators. So that adds to the burden of the child. So there's a lot of complicated issues we need to discuss with regard to predators and sexual predators. And the most sexual predators, and I feel everybody to a degree by sexually projecting is becoming a sexual predator. They are using manipulative techniques in order to gain some kind of response from the other person. But when you do this with children, it is particularly a serious problem. And requires that you need to address some issues as soon as you possibly can, because you are in danger of severely harming children if you engage if you actually take action upon your feelings with regard to your sexual attraction to children.
As we've discussed, though, in other public seminars, there is the issue of emotional incest, isn't there, where one parent or sometimes both parents are transmitting sexual emotions towards their children.
This is the reason why there is so much abuse of children that occurs on the planet, is because generally the parents have set up some kind of emotionally incestuous relationship already with that child, and that's caused a lot of these particular problems to occur. So it's a very serious problem, and because of humankind's unwillingness to generally address issues regarding sexuality from an emotional perspective, most people never resolve these issues their entire life.
And it's a terrible burden, isn't it, to carry through life, and a terrible part of ourselves that's all locked away and shut down with shame, and really prevents a lot of potential happiness.
And we can resolve it. That's the sad thing. You can resolve it, and in a relatively short time. But it requires a number of things, and perhaps that's what we need to talk about.